Hello, everybody. It's nice to be back with our Bold Chats. Just a quick, brief introduction about Brass Out Loud and ourselves. My name is Rebecca Crew, and I'm one of the founders of Brass Out Loud. And I am a French horn player in the New Jersey and New York City areas, currently getting my doctorate at Rutgers University.
Hello, everybody. My name is Melissa Munoz, and I'm a trumpeter, an educator, and administrator here in New York City. Very happy to be one of the co-founders of Brass Out Loud as well, and very happy to be here today.
Awesome. So, really great to see everybody again. Bold Chats haven't been around since probably the fall, but we're really excited to have them back for the summer and for this upcoming fall. And just quickly, if you don't know about Brass Out Loud and what we do, basically, Melissa and our other co-founder, Kate, and I met through a Facebook group. And at the time, a lot of people were posting pictures. This was around the time COVID was happening in 2020. And people were posting pictures of all of these seminars and workshops that were coming up. And the lack of representation was very disturbing. And we kind of had joined together and said, you know, if we want to see the change in these workshops and these seminars, then we need to be the change. So our mission is basically to highlight people who feel underrepresented and people who are underrepresented in the brass community, and create something that is very cohesive and safe and a home for pretty much everybody. So with that being said, Brass Out Loud is super excited because next weekend on June 5th, we are having our first in-person event in Brooklyn, New York. And basically what's happening is we are putting on a benefit concert. So that is happening on June 5th at 7:30 p.m. in Brooklyn. You can check out our Facebook page and our Instagram pages for more information on how to get involved and the addresses. But everybody is welcome. We have a suggested donation of $20 if you're able to give anything. We are super appreciative of that, and all of the funds go towards funding our next workshop in 2023 in January. So with that being said, we're gonna have some amazing artists like Sam Lake. We have the Metropolitan Horn Authority. We're going to have Egalitarian, and we are going to have Melissa, help me out with his last name. Chris Bill. I don't know how I forgot that. I was like, so many things going through my head right now. Those are some of the people that we have lined up. But if you are interested in playing for our benefit concert, contact us. There is a Google form on our Facebook page that you can sign up for. So let us know. Again, June 5th, 7:30 p.m. in Brooklyn, New York, our first in-person event, and we are so excited. So with all of that being said and all of that being shared, we are here with Segbefia, and we are so excited to have him with us. So Ego, could you just start by briefly telling us who you are, and could you tell us also about your musical upbringing?
Of course. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to come on your platform and to share my story. My full name is Eganam Segbefia, and I go informally by Ego. It's pronounced kind of like the waffles. Although it's spelled with one G, there's an accent over the E. So a lot of the times, you know, people say ego, and it's funny because I'm a trumpet player, and trumpet players are known to be egotistical. So it's a great conversation starting point. And I was like, no, it's ego. It's all like the waffle. Yeah. But about that's enough. So my upbringing musically, I was born in Nigeria. I didn't play any instruments there, but I was always around brass instruments because they were brass bands. And when I came to the United States, I got teased for my English because, you know, I was 10 years old and the movie Roots had just come out, and it was about slavery, and being that I just came from Africa, you know, I ended up being the butt of a lot of jokes. And so music class was the one class where, you know, you put the mouthpiece to your mouth, and no one hears you talk, but you're actually communicating with people. And so it became my safe haven. You know, I started playing in the 5th grade. I joined every after school program that I possibly could do because there was no privacy at home as well. And this kind of gave me an identity. And so I just started playing, and it was my outlet. And I didn't know I was going to be a musician until it came time to go to college. And I was like, well, I've been playing the trumpet since the 5th grade and I kind of like doing it. Well, how about I just go to school and study for it? And so that's my upbringing in a nutshell. If you want to dig it, we can dig a little deeper. You know, I joined the Cadets of New York City, which is a Division III drum and bugle corps, and I did that from 2002 to 2006. And in 2007, I joined the Cadets of Bergen County, which is the Division I Corps, and I marched with them that year. And then as soon as I finished that, I took a year off of school, and then I went down to South Carolina State University. I did my undergrad in music education. And as soon as I finished that, I came back up to New York, took another couple more years off, and then went to MSM and got my master's in classical performance. So that's kind of like the academia aspect of it. Now, my musical upbringing, there's been a lot of marching band like style music, pop music, and I didn't really get into classical music until I got to college. No, until I got to the MSM. So my first time seeing a C trumpet was 6 months before my audition at MSM. And it was nerve-wracking because I only knew the B flat trumpet, and then I picked up another instrument and I played the same fingerings and a different sound came out. And I was like, I've been playing this for over 20 years now. What's going on? Like, how can I figure this out? And so the cool thing about that is that it opened my mind and opened me to be very, very open as to understanding that music is not just one style, and it's a lot of different things that you can, add to your repertoire, add to your upbringing as for, social, political as well, because there are different songs that specifically tell what time that we're in. So with all that being said, my upbringing has been a bit of a shuffle because I grew up listening to rap and hip hop. I listened to jazz, I listened to classical music. And so all of these different styles of music have influenced, my repertoire, which I picked today, which is, I think is really cool and eclectic.
Yeah, that I love that you have so much marching band background because we were talking about this a little bit before we started live. But Rebecca had also marched cadets, and I also marched crossmen, and I always felt like all of the values that I learned from drum corps have been so applicable to my
Absolutely.
performance life. Could you talk a little bit about some of the traits that you learned in drum corps that have stayed with you throughout your time as a professional musician?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the first thing is time management. My fiance sometimes she gets a little upset with me because I am down. Okay, so we're gonna sleep from 8:15 till 4:15. At 4:15, we're gonna wake up. We're gonna brush your teeth, shower by 4:30. We gotta do this by 5 o'clock. You gotta be out of the house. It's gonna take me five minutes. Everything is so regimented because when I marched the cadets, everything had to be down to the T. And so now, it programmed me because for 3 months while I was on tour, that's literally all I did. And I was the last year that marched with before. So cell phones, not cell phones. The first iPhone came out in September of 2007, and I marched up until August 2007. So when I say fully immersed, I was immersed. There's no social media. There's nothing going on, and the only time I got to speak to my parents was at a payphone in a different state. Whenever we got an opportunity to. So that reprogrammed and retrained my mind to really be an understanding how to maximize each time and to kind of squeeze the juice out of each day. And so now that I'm, a lot older and in my professional career, I'm looking at things differently because I'm like, okay, if I get up and I'm teaching from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., I can get lunch between this time. It seems just easy, but when you actually discipline yourself, because we as musicians naturally we become entrepreneurs and we have to discipline ourselves. And so in order to keep the same drive going, I had to really tap back into the time management, the time scheduling that I learned at the cadets, and then also just the discipline and the self-motivation because while I was marching, George Hopkins was the corps director at the time, and he would always say, this is the hardest thing that you're ever going to do physically, mentally, and emotionally all at once of your whole life. And I never really quite understood it until years after I had, marched, and then I would be thinking back like, how in the world was I able to do this from 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 p.m. every day on a schedule, burning about 8,000 calories a day. And, now I'm just, don't feel like getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, well, if I was able to do that, I can do this. So that's one of the values that's really, really stuck with me. Another value is discipline and integrity, and just being forward and putting my best foot forward, and being satisfied with what comes out after that and what the results are.
That's awesome. I think there are so many great qualities that you just mentioned, learning them from Jump Core, and I can definitely relate. I worked with George, not in the same kind of context that you did, but he was, there, and we still had the same qualities and everything at cadets too, like the cadets did. So
Mhm.
I definitely like what you said about integrity and putting your best foot forward, because I feel like that's so relevant in that field, but that's also so relevant in both like the classical and jazz and rock and whatever kind of music field that you go into. So I really like that you, like, that was something that like really stuck with you, because I think that
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
great quality.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember my brass caption head said something that I think about all the time. He said we had done a really good rep of whatever we were playing, and then he said, "Well, I shouldn't congratulate you for doing what you're supposed to be doing." And I always think about that after I accomplish something. I'm like, "Wait, well, that was just expected." So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, kind of to change subjects, we want to know about your soloist career here in New York City. So you started playing in the New York City subway stations,
Mm-hmm.
and that has just grown and grown and grown and evolved to something really beautiful. So could you speak to that experience and some of the challenges and wins that you've overcome?
Oh, I mean, I'll break it down into Spark Notes version as best as I could, because I could speak about this for the next like 8 hours, not even getting tired. So first and foremost, I started on June 6, 2013. I remember like it was yesterday. I stood outside of Yankee Stadium. I said a prayer and I played for about 45 minutes and I made $8. The reason why that's very important was because at the time I was working at John George's, the restaurant at the Trump Tower, and I was cleaning wine glasses for minimum wage, which was $8.75 an hour. And I hated that job. Prior to that job, I was working for Cape Man Raven, and I was making a lot of money because he was a celebrity baker. And so when I stopped working for him because I didn't have enough time to practice, one of my friends said, "You should just go out and play." So I went out and played, and I made $8.45 of playing. And I was like, well, this is the same amount of money I would be making at John George, So he said, just try it again. And we played before the game, which was around 1 p.m. And so I waited till after the game was done, and I played again, and I made $35 in 45 minutes again. And so I was like, okay, well, this is a good start. And so I counted everything up. I was like, okay, well, this is cool. And so I made a goal that summer of 2013 before I went back to school. And I said, I want to create a website, create an online footprint, because at that time I started to watch, people who were already established. Everyone had a website. So I was like, well, if they're established, they have a website, then maybe I need to get one. And so I started to learn all these things. And by that end of that summer, it was good. The website was there. I was like, all right, awesome. So now what's the next thing? And the next thing was, to start, getting better on the instrument. I started playing at Central Park. And when I started playing at Central Park, they would call the park rangers on me all the time because my technical facility wasn't there. So it sounded, a trumpet player, you're either good, there's an in-between phase that you usually in, and then you can hit the notes and everything. And then there's like not good where it sounds like farts. Then there's the in-between phase that you're in, and then there's the phase that, okay, now you can play. And then there's a professional, and then after professional, then you have the people who are aliens. Whit Marsalis, Arturo Sandoval, the list goes on. And so us mere mortals, we have to work. And so that journey continued. And I started playing at Grand Central subway station from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning, and then from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., catching the rush hour, the morning rush hour, and the evening rush hour. And this was critical because I started to make a lot more money. Why? Because I would see a different audience of about 500 people every 2 to 3 minutes, because the trains would always interchange. So you'd have people coming in from Yonkers, people coming in from downtown, people coming from the east side, from the west side, and Grand Central was where everyone, kind of met. And so I chose there to play because, again, my friend said, you never know who you meet. So it was always this thing that I was always putting it out there, put myself out there. I didn't really care about. At first, I cared about the mistakes. I'm not gonna lie to you. Every musician who plays some form of music, we all like, okay, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. And so I started to play, and people started to give me compliments like, oh, you sound good. Some people would say, oh, I used to play the trumpet, but I started working. And so these people would always encourage me. And so they just became like my foundation and like my central core family members who I would see Monday through Friday, in the morning going to work and then coming out from work. And so when I graduated South Carolina State University, I came back to New York because I didn't want to teach in South Carolina. And I didn't really have any goals. I said, well, I'm just gonna, play in the subway until, I figure something out. And I met this guy named Mike Shode, who I'm not sure if that's still his position, but he was a general manager for WQXR. And he walks up to me, he says, I don't know how you do it. You play all these standard classical repertoire in the morning, and then when I'm going back home from work, you're here playing the same thing. Aren't your lips hurting? And then I told him, I was like, well, I warm up usually for about an hour, and I play from 6 to 9. And I was kind of like downplaying it, but he still said, no, like that's a lot. And I said, well, I grew up in the drum corps world. In the drum corps world, we played until, we couldn't breathe anymore. And so just standing here and playing is actually a bit easier. And so he said, all right, well, I would like to feature you on WQXR's Classical Commute. And so that was the first publication. He was the first person to ever, like throw me a bone. And so I started to, get to know him. And then I sat with him and his boss at the time, Grant Parker. And I said, well, I want to really take music seriously here in New York City. And he said, well, you got to go to one of the conservatories and get a degree in performance, because that's the only way anybody's going to take you seriously in New York, because that's the standard. And I said, all right, cool. At the time, prior to that, I think this was 2015. So 2010, I auditioned for Manhattan School of Music the first time, and I didn't get in. And so, of course, I know why I didn't get in. I did everything on a B-flat trumpet. And now I know I had to play C trumpet and the piccolo. And so I was a lot more equipped, knowledgeable about what was going on. And so I did the audition and I got in. And so when I got in, I still played in the subway from 6 to 9 a.m. Most of my classes started at 10 a.m. So I would be already 3 hours of playing. We'd have, brass workshops and all these different things. But the cool thing about playing in the subway was it forced me to be a very social person, because people would walk up to me all the time in the middle of a song, right before I finished playing a song, after I finished playing a song. There were lots of compliments, and there were also lots of constructive criticism. And then there were a few people who were just like, dude, like, what are you doing here? Go get a job. And, I took everything with a grain of salt. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to decipher from everybody what they're telling me, and I'm going to continue to work. And so when you have a lot of people that are coming at you in that way every day, giving, either smiling or tipping you with your money, showing their appreciation, things like that, it gives you a momentum to go from. And so I got my first gig, and this was the music business aspect of it that I started to learn from playing in the subway, because I would do performances where I would charge $50 for an hour of performance. And I remember vividly, I did a gala and I charged, I think it was $100 I charged to perform for an hour for the gala, for cocktail hour. And so they invited me to sit down and, dine with them. And so as I was dining with them, I'm looking at the, galas usually they're fundraisers and things. And there's like $10,000, $25,000, $60,000. And so I asked the lady, I was like, well, how much is a plate? Oh, a plate was $1,000. I was like, and I'm here charging $100 for this. And so that was, a lot of these growing things, growing pains, and growing and learning the music business and being an entrepreneur. I learned every single thing in the subways in Central Park and understood my worth. And the funny thing about it is that, when you look at street musicians, a lot of people look at them as struggling musicians who aren't really, don't know what they're doing and things like that. And I was a struggling musician as well, but I played classical music and I tapped into something that there was I would say it wasn't really a need, but I created a need, which is classical trumpet played by a Black man in the subway. Most of the time, the stigma when you see a Black man with a trumpet is jazz. And there's nothing wrong with that, because we have so many people who play jazz who are Black people, and they played it extremely well. But I studied classical music and I didn't really know how to improvise. So if I didn't know how to improvise, I wasn't going to go out there and just make a fool of myself. So I played what I knew and I played to my strengths. And that really helped me to get into different rooms because classical music is viewed at with a sense of elegance, and you can do a lot of different things. Same thing with jazz, which is now funny because a lot more of my performances now, people are asking me to play jazz, which is really cool. But I started playing classical music. Now, moving fast forward, as I said, I was going to kind of cut it short, but I'm going for a long time. I learned a lot. Like, you know, the most important thing that I've learned about, you know, just life and music and from playing in the subway is that not only do you have to be good, you must be a nice person. Because if you're not a nice person, no one's going to invest anything into you. You know, if you can't just share a genuine smile with a stranger or with just anybody, no one is going to be, you know, they don't remember how good you play. They remember how you made them feel. And a lot of the times, this ties into inspiration without perspiration, which is hallucination, because I created that mantra because I needed something to kind of help me to stand on, because I knew that my technical facility wasn't that good. So if people read the sign, inspiration or perspiration is hallucination, if you break it down, I'm inspiring to be something and I'm working at it. You know, right now I don't sound good, but I know that if I continue on this path 5, 6, 7, 10 years later from this, I would have, you know, something's got to give, you know. And so that was the foundation that I had with that. And then also, so I learned, you know, you got to be good, you got to be nice. And the third one is keep an open mind. And the fourth one is call everybody on their bluff. And the reason why I say call everybody on their bluff is because people come up to you and they say, oh, I want you to play for this party that I'm having or whatever the situation is. All right, cool. Here's my card. Let me know when you're serious. You know, not when you're serious. Let me know when you want to move forward. And if you see the person again, you know, hey, are you still interested? You know, it doesn't mean that you're nagging them, but you're calling them on that. And if they're really serious, that's an opportunity for you. If not, you can kind of bow out and keep it moving. And so, you know, looking at it now, you know, just this last week, I went to London for the first time. I was flown out. Everything was paid for, and I stayed for a whole week just to perform for 25 minutes, which is the dessert portion. And all of this was because 9 years ago, I decided that I'm going to go on this journey. And it's been a very fulfilling journey. Now, you know, I'm able to be in so many different rooms where I'm performing for so many people who are, you know, high profile clients. And it's really awesome because now I can just get on the phone and speak to them like regular people. Whereas I look at them on TV or somebody else look at them on TV and it's like, wait, you were with that guy? I was like, yeah. And I have pictures to kind of like prove it. And it's really cool because not only do I work and play in these private events, you know, I'm able to now be in the public light and play and to show people who look like me that it is possible regardless of what you do. Because, you know, the standard classical route is you go to school, you go in the orchestra, you perform in the orchestra, you go to try to get jobs, and you work at it until you get a job. Once you get the job, you don't let it go because of all the benefits and things like that. However, so if you don't want to work in an orchestra, what do? Do you, you know, how do you create a living for yourself? And so these are all things that I've learned and picked up along the way from being a musician and being a busker or street performer, whichever word, you know, we all choose to identify with.
So beautifully said, Eganam.
Thank
Like
you.
really, really, truly. I'm taking notes because we always like to keep fresh what our guests say, and just so many big points that students can learn from and anybody can learn from who is trying to become a musician. Maybe not the standard, you know, goes to get their master's and then wins an orchestra job and then eventually this and that, which
Mm-hmm.
um, a big goal of Brass Out Louds is to show people that there are other ways to be a musician and
Absolutely.
to be a successful musician. And so some of the things that I really loved was taking everything with a grain of salt. Oh my goodness, that is so hard to do whenever you're a young musician. Knowing your worth and paving your own path. And then
Mm-hmm.
also the 4 points that you mentioned, you got to be good, nice, open mind, and calling their bluff. So I just kind of wanted to put all that in the same little chunk. It was really, really great.
Right.
You touched a little bit on your mantra, inspiration without perspiration is hallucination. And
Mm-hmm.
we want to know, where did it come from? What does it mean, especially to you? And can other people adopt this?
Oh yeah, I mean, everybody can adopt this. I created that. It kind of just came to me. There wasn't a specific moment that I was like, light bulb, and it came out. because I was always thinking when I first started playing, I knew that technically I didn't sound good. And so I needed something that when people saw me, they would, be able to tip. I'm like, okay, well, this guy's working towards something. Because when I was doing my research and looking at all other street musicians, they would just put a bag there and that would be it. They'd just put a bag, maybe put an email or something, and that would be it. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to raise that level up a little bit because I want people to know that I'm not just out here just for this, that I'm working towards something. And this is, let's say, a waiting room for me to get to the next room that I'm, next place that I'm going. And so inspiration without perspiration is hallucination. I thought about it because I wanted it to be one, cross-cultural, and two, cross-religion, and three, anybody, doesn't matter what color, what creed, what political stance they stand for. When you work hard and you have a nice attitude, you can do anything you want, you can do in this world. And when you inspire to do something, if you work hard at it, you're not going to be hallucinating. You'll think you're hallucinating, but there's going to be a point in your life where it's just going to click and you're like, now I see why I was working so hard. And so that's really the mantra that I put in. And a lot of the times, when I'm giving master classes or working with kids, I always tell them and I give them these words and I have them, look it up in a dictionary and tell me what it means to them. And to see how they're able to translate these words to their understanding is beautiful because it almost always gives me a different light of being able to think about these words. And so it's just been really awesome because now I'm ripping the benefits of the seed that I sowed 9 years ago. But what's even more beautiful is that 9 years from now, it's like where like if I keep on this track, I'm gonna go way higher because the learning curve, it's usually like this, and then it just shoots up almost in anything that you want to do. And it's just going through this part where the curve is just a little bit where it shoots up. It's there's an analogy, well, not an analogy, it's actual fact. A bamboo tree, if you want to grow a bamboo tree, you're going to water it for 5 years and nothing will come out of the ground. And once you see the first sprout come out of the ground, within 40 days, I think 8 weeks or 40 or something like that, but it shoots up 40 feet in the air. So you water it for 5 years, and as soon as it comes out, it shoots up for 40 feet in 8 weeks. And that just goes to show, again, you just got to keep watering it, inspiration, the perspiration. If you're inspired to do something and it's here in your head, in order to bring it out on the side of anything, on the other side of anything that you want to do is hard work, preservation, and, determination and just not giving up. And so that's what it all comes down to. And so I use that every time I play. Whenever I play, there have been times where I would forget my sign when I go out to play, and I refuse to play without the sign because to me, it means that much because I'm like, I'm not out here just playing for the money. Of course, we live in a capitalistic society. We need to pay our bills and be able to, live life how we choose to live life. However, philosophy, that lives a lifetime. Like that's forever. So that's what it comes from for me.
I think that's really awesome. And something that I really like that you said was that, you go through all this hard work and eventually like everything just clicks. And I think that sometimes it's so, especially for younger students, sorry, I have a lot of dogs, but especially for younger students, sometimes like that, there's a little bit of impatience and it's like, you have to trust the process. I know for me, like I had a student, I'm an adjunct teacher at a community college by me, but I had a student and, he would come in, he'd say, these are all the things that I'm having a hard time with. Can you help me? And we would sit there, I'd explain everything. He'd test things out. We tried things differently. And all of a sudden it would click and he'd be like, how does that work like that? And you could tell that like, but when like the environment, like the persona, everything just changes from like the moment he walks in to the moment then he leaves the lesson. It's like you're leaving in a much better place than you came in. Like you came in saying, oh, like all of these things are so hard, but like you said, like the work that you put in will give you that moment of basically truth and, show you why you work so hard. So I think that that's, a really awesome phrase that you came up with, and really awesome mantra.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So kind of wrapping this all in together, in addition to being a soloist, you're also an educator. So do you have any advice for students seeking a career maybe similar to yours?
The first thing that I would say is think about 100 years from now, when you're gone, you're not on this earth anymore, because we all have our day that we're going to be gone. And if someone opens a book about you, what do you want them to see in that book? When you write that down, then you can work backwards. It seems like there's a lot, seems very far, but in order to get to Z, you got to start with A, then from A, you got to get to B, to C, to D, to E. When you work backwards that way, it makes a lot more sense, because then you understand what journey you're on, because everybody's on a different journey. Now, if you want to be a musician, the first thing that I would say is you got to have an open mind, take things with a grain of salt, never give up. No matter how hard it looks, never give up, because the moment you give up, that's the moment you stop living. And once you stop living, then, for me, when I think about it, is wherever progress stops, resentment starts. Because in life, everybody has their own timeline. So you're on a timeline, you're ahead of certain people, and some people are just going to be ahead of you. When you stop progressing, you're going to grow resentment for people who are progressing and to keep going. So if you keep going and you go at your pace and you're showing who you are, and you understand that, okay, this is where I want to go, but life is throwing me a curveball right now. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to take a step back and go a little bit slower, but I'm still going to continue working towards this goal. When you get there, it's going to make it so much more meaningful. The reason why I say that is because, I look at MSM as a very big example. I got into college. My first year in college was 2008. A 4-year degree took me 7 years to get done. I got done in 2015. I auditioned to get into MSM in 2010. I didn't get in. I auditioned to get into MSM, spring 2016. And I got in for fall 2016 and was offered almost a full scholarship. And when I got into MSM, I didn't know how to transpose. We did, and you guys will understand this, we did Mahler 1, and I was reading the third trumpet part, and I played exactly what I saw in the brass class. And the conductor stopped. He said, "You're playing the wrong note." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm playing what I see." He said, "It's upper fourth." I'm like, "What's upper fourth? What does that mean?" So, as a master's student, so I got in as, one of the lower ranking trumpet players. And by the time I got done with MSM, I won the concerto competition, and it's very meaningful. And the reason why I say all of these things is because I was the oldest trumpet player. I was the oldest student in the brass, like everything. I was 27 when I got into the school. The next person's age was 23 or 22. And I felt intimidated. I felt all of these things like, oh man, these kids are playing scales around me. These guys they've been playing, they've had teachers forever, all of these things. But I was sure in my journey and I was sure in my strengths, but also knew that there were certain parts about my playing that I really, 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 really needed to work on. And I said, you know what? I'm here for a reason and I'm going to continue. Everyone has their own journey as to where they want to go. And when you realize and you're able to, so some people are blessed to realize these things at a younger age. And some of us have to, we have to go through the growing pains in order to realize what our purpose is. And so, again, going through that journey, and I finally got out, even before I graduated, I was invited to MSM Gala to have dinner with the donors of the school. And this was like, I was playing in the subway in 2015. In 2018, I was in a Rainbow Room with the people who were donating millions of dollars to MSM. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying this because of the hard work that goes in on all of this. Because people see, oh, the glitz and the glam and all of that good stuff, but the work that goes in, the discipline, the getting up at 4:30 in the morning, because I was taking 18 credits every semester in school. as a graduate student and still playing in the subway from 6 to 9 in the morning. So I would go to brass class and have to play for, I had to play for Matt Mucky, and I had to play Albinoni, the oboe, the Albinoni, I think it's Opus 9, number 2, something like that. But it was the really slow movement, and it required a lot of work. And I've been playing for 3 hours, playing Hummel, Haydn, Artunian, all that stuff in the subway, and Flight of the Bumblebee, and I had to come play a piccolo trumpet for this guy, and sounded like crap. But I knew that, you know what, everybody's on a different journey. I didn't really care what other students thought. Oh, this guy sounds crap, he shouldn't be in the school. They didn't know my journey. They didn't know what I had to deal with. Again, I wasn't arrogant about it, about, you know, the things that I had to deal with, because I understand that everybody has something to go with. And so with someone who wants to, you know, become a musician, you have to, like, working hard. There's no substitute for that. Working hard, there's no substitute for it. If you want to be an educator, you have to have grace. You have to be grateful, because when you come from a place of gratitude, there's almost nothing wrong that you can do, because it's always giving you an opportunity to reflect of where you've come from. And so, in a nutshell, you know, I think of things on a much deeper level, because again, when people want to do things, we just, oh, I just want to do this and that's that. And I've been a victim of that as well. But it's very important to point that out, that, excuse me, everyone has a journey that they're on. And in order to get from point A to point B, you need hard work, perseverance, persistence, patience, and prayer if you're religious. So, that's it.
Thank you so much for that. That it's so true. Everybody is on their own journey, and you just
Mhm.
have no idea what's going on behind closed doors and living in gratitude. Once I started embracing gratitude and really trying to make it a regular part of my life, I was a
Mhm.
happier person all the time. It was like, things might be going to what, but I'm still grateful for what's going on right now and the people around me. And how lucky are we that we get to live in music? Really,
Absolutely.
it's kind of crazy when you think about it that we're actually doing music for a living. Um, so thank you for that. All right, we want to know what's coming up next for you. What big projects, what opportunities are coming up? You were just back from London, so you're obviously killing it.
Thank you. So I got invited to play for Little Island again this year that's coming up. So I'll be there on June 12th, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll be there again in August. One part of my job that I take to heart so much is playing at retirement homes. And I got hired to play at another retirement home in the Upper West Side. And the reason why I love playing in retirement homes is that older people give you perspective. They don't really have to say anything to you, but they give you perspectives on life. And so performing there is really, really cool. I'm also working on my first album, and it's a slow grind, because there's still a lot of ideas that are in my mind, and directions that I want to take, and experiments of what I want to do with the music, that I'm like, okay, I'll write things. I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to do this. I want to do that. All right, let's go back. So it's still, um, I want to say foggy. I can see as far as like what I'm working on, but it's still kind of foggy because there's still a lot more different ideas in my mind. I'm gonna hopefully be performing for some high profile clients as well. I love doing private events because, again, it gives me an opportunity to be in rooms with people who have a lot of influence in the world. And then it also gives me an opportunity to really speak to them and get an insight on, what the next thing is going on in this world. I have In the next week, I'll be going to Chicago. My little sisters are graduating from U Chicago, so I'm very, very happy about that. I'll be doing a couple weddings, one in Miami in July, and another wedding in Tulum, Mexico in August. So those are the very next things that are coming up. I'm working on a Christmas concert with my friend Tina. So hopefully everything goes as planned, and I'll have my first concert since 2019. Yeah. So, and that was another thing that I wanted to regularly do. I wanted to do a quarterly concert with my friend, but COVID kind of stopped everything, and so I'm looking forward to being back in front of people again.
That's awesome that you have so many exciting things, and for sure Brass Out Loud will be following it, and we hope that everybody watching will keep following you on your journey.
Thank you.
So With that being said, everybody, if you have any questions, please drop them now in the Facebook chat. But we are going to wrap with our last question. And this is something that we ask all of our Bold Chat artists and guests. And this is a question that can be interpreted in any way you would like it to be interpreted. So with that being said, our last question is, what is your ideal brass community look like?
My ideal brass community is, I have it's like a tentacle, like an octopus with so many different tentacles, right? So I have the brass, the standard classical, crew that I normally speak about whenever a mall or anything is being played anywhere. Then I have the drum corps crew that we meet up every August and we watch DCI. Then I have like the jazz heads that I try to hack, and then I go sit down and listen to them and all of that stuff. And then I have the Broadway guys, and then I have the Jay Landris guys. So it's 5 of them that I'm usually like. It's just always really, really cool. And one of my friends, his name is Clyde. I haven't seen him in quite some time. We always, just hang out, and he's been like
Clyde Daly?
Yes, Clyde Daly. He's been
Clyde.
like
Shout out to
a
Clyde.
godsend. When I first started playing, he was the one who was always like, "Hey, I got this gig. Here, I got this gig. Here, I got this gig for you." And he would just be throwing them. I'd catch them like alleys, and he's a really cool guy. And we would always get together, play duets. We haven't done that in a long time, but it's been pretty cool. And also my band directors are part of the Tentacles. I always go back to Santa Cruz Bronx High School of Music, my high school that I graduated from, and I always give free lessons. I try my best always to do that because I never got free lessons when I was younger, but I saw a lot of artists, and it inspired me. So I figured, if I could just go and pay it forward there, I don't need any accolades or anything like that. That's for people who want that, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. I just want to make sure that I'm able to give back in some way, shape, or form. So that's my community.
That's awesome. Melissa, I don't know. You had something to say, Melissa?
No, sorry for interrupting you. It's just Clyde really is the bomb. And
He is.
We should get him on Bold Chats.
Absolutely.
Great idea. Another trumpet player. It's where definitely we outnumber Rebecca. We have 2 trumpet players on staff and a horn player, so we need to get a rotation going here. But thank you so much for being here, Ego. If you want to keep up with everything that Ego is doing and all of his shows, or simply just learn more about him, you can visit his website at everythingego.com. And that is it for today. I would like to say another thank you to both Ego and Rebecca and everybody watching. Please visit brassoutloud.com to stay up to date with what we're doing. Don't forget, we have our benefit concert 1 week from tomorrow. We have so many great things coming up, and we would love to see some, if not all of you there. And thank you all for being here today.